Hi, welcome to Sociology 226, Week 2, Karl Marx, Video 1. In this video I've got 3 tasks. First, I want to introduce you to Karl Marx, to the people who he met in his life and who he was reading. Secondly, I want to look to Karl Marx's critique of political economy, how he thinks about social life through the forces of production. Finally, I want to get you ready to do the readings. Let's get started. There are 3 key phases in Karl Marx's life: his early philosophical work, secondly, his work in radical politics, and finally, his mature economic phase. You've likely heard about Karl Marx because of his radical politics, but here I want to read him as a sociologist, inspiring other sociologists in his wake. Marx was born in Trier, Prussia in 1818. He starts university in 1835 with an 1841 doctorate on Greek philosophy, hanging out with a bunch of academics reading German idealism. He gets involved in radical politics and economics, and cannot get a job. Marx is later kicked out of Germany. Marx meets Engels in France in 1844. Together, they write the Communist Manifesto in 1847, immediately preceding the numerous 1848 revolutions throughout Europe. In 1849, Marx is kicked out of France and lives in England for the rest of his life. He also writes columns for the New York Herald Tribune, dying in 1883. Here I want to talk about Marx's philosophical and economic influences. You don't need to get every aspect of this down, but I want to show you how he formed his thought, which will come through in the readings. The biggest philosophical influence on Karl Marx is G.W.F. Hegel. Hegel's philosophy we'll call German idealism. For Hegel and German idealists, history is the process through which mind or spirit looks outside of itself, finds recognition, and advances to a higher stage of development. To understand Marx's thought, we can focus on 3 attributes of Hegel's thought: idealism, history, and conflict. First, Hegel is an idealist. That is, he thinks that consciousness is the prime mover of history. Secondly, Hegel's system is developmental. As we progress through history, things become more rational. This approach to the development of the present and the past will be crucial for Marx as well. Finally, there's a focus on conflict. History is not simply progressed through agreement, but through struggle. It is from Hegel and his followers where Marx takes the term alienation, found in the readings this week. Hegel's alienation has to do with the historical progression of consciousness as it looks outside itself for fulfillment. From Hegel we have a focus on ideas, the structure of history, and an understanding of conflict. We also have the concept of alienation. How labor is alienating is Marx's concern. As I said, Marx wrote his dissertation on ancient Greek philosophy, and it is from here where he takes his materialist opposition to the Hegelian system. 2 influences on Marx are primary. The first is Aristotle. For Aristotle, man is a decidedly political animal. We realize what we are in social life. For Marx, and for the ancients, what makes a human being is not simply an animal being, or a body with organs and needs and a lifespan, but also the capacity for public action. This is the attribute that sets human beings apart from other animals. We are zoon politikon, a political animal. It is, for Aristotle and Marx, in our nature to be social, and in being social we realize what we are. As I note, neither Aristotle nor Marx is a feminist. As we progress through this course, and to the work of Dorothy Smith, we'll see how people read gender in the Marxist framework. Secondly, Democritus. As I noted, Marx wrote his dissertation on the theory of Greek materialism, the belief that at its base, the world is made up of material substance. What matters for us sociologists is that this would be Marx's biggest difference with Hegel. Hegel is an idealist, Marx a materialist. It is not the force of ideas that shape history, it is material struggle. So let's summarize Marx's philosophical approach. First and foremost, Marx is a materialist. He doesn't just think that things exist in material form, he thinks that the cause of things is material. So here he isn't just interested in physics, he's also interested in how material forces shape and cause social change. The world and history are not made by ideas, they are made by material forces. So when you hear materialist, think the economy, or work. Secondly, social. Following Aristotle, Marx says that we are fundamentally a political animal and we realize our nature as we participate in collective life. This is one of the ways in which Marx is a sociological forefather in focusing on the ways our collective life produces individuals. We are who we are not only because of our animal nature, but the ways that we've organized the human species throughout history. Finally, historical. Marx is a fundamentally historical thinker, since he focuses on the material forces that shape collective life. His is not a history of consciousness, it is a history of production and consumption, of the various ways that we eat and work and act within our historical position. When we read the manuscripts that I assign your reading from, written in 1844, the world was changing drastically. Marx was one of the first thinkers to recognize how changes in the economy from agrarian feudalism were reshaping social organization and causing new forms of struggle. This is what we mean when we say historical materialism, often a pseudonym for Marx's thought. We inherit what we are from the past, but Hegel got it wrong. There's no ideal reason to history, there is a material reason to history. Let's look to Marx's critique of political economy. At the start of the reading I gave you, Marx will say, "We have proceeded from the premises of political economy." Page 69. He's going to argue that the principles of economics, adjusted a little bit, are compatible with the philosophical alienation that he took from Hegel. So let's look to economic life and focus on how we divide labor in the society in which we live. How do we define political economy? Noun, mass noun, dated. Economics is a branch of knowledge or academic discipline. Oxford English Dictionary. Instead of economics as a whole, I want to look to the division of labor. The division of labor seems like a pretty simple concept, people doing different stuff, but it's extremely important for the work we're going to talk about today, which is critical of political economy. All of this is necessary to outline what I'm going to call Karl's 3 problems in the next video. Let's think through the division of labor through the example of the restaurant. Hey, it's the Belchers. They're going to help out my explanation of the gains of trade. In your traditional mom and pop restaurant, everybody does everything. However, by devoting each person to a particular task, production can increase. In the case of Bob's Burgers, Bob's in the back flipping and complaining, Linda's up at the counter, Tina and Louise are bussing tables, and I don't know what Gene does, but he's there anyway. In contrast to a restaurant where each member does each task, the division of labor means more burgers in bellies. So, economists suggest that if everyone specializes in a task, which they are relatively more efficient in contrast to the other party with whom they trade, we're all better off. These are the benefits of specialization. These are the benefits of trade. You've got enough context to get through the readings now, but when you're doing so, I want you to look for 3 things. First, Hegelian influences. Marx, because of the dudes he was hanging out with, is interested in finding out how history progresses. But he doesn't want to talk about ideas or spirit, he wants to talk about how things are produced. Secondly, ancient influences. Marx believes that human beings realize who they are in actions. Actions have definite material causes and material effects. Focus on materials. Finally, Marx is interested in the division of labor. How we organize labor is how we organize social life. To find out how actors will behave, focus on how they produce and consume things. Okay, you're ready. Go forth and read those 1844 manuscripts after you read the encyclopedia entry on alienation.